while many others were being held on what is called administrative detention, a controversial practice where people are held without any legal process. One of the released Palestinians was Mara Bakir, who was a child when Israeli forces shot and arrested her for allegedly attempting to stab an Israeli officer. Bakir and her family deny the accusations. As of September, the Israeli prison service was holding 146.
So, Nick, you're telling me, I know you're off, but you're telling me that a child, let's just say the story that they're saying is true. That in this little MSNBC segment, let's say the story they're saying about this little girl is true. Let's say she did try to stab an Israeli soldier and she was a child. That means you put her in prison for years? A child? Like, I'm just trying to imagine, like, if a child did something like that here, and let's say, but you have to add to the fact that this is a child doing something to an occupying force. This is not a regular guy that's here saving a cat out of a tree. You get what I'm saying? And
you guys gotta remember, there's no due process. So what will happen? Like, if there was a child in the United States that tried to attack a police officer or someone with a weapon, there would be investigation into that, right? They don't do that. IDF says the child did this, so now they're in prison forever. Good luck. That's their policy. And that's why now I see why you call it. I didn't see this segment, but now I see why you say this is a rare W by MSNBC, because I swear to God, this is like the first segment I've seen, other than probably one other CNN segment that talked about it. There are probably two segments I've seen now, all the ones I've seen where they even mention the Palestinian hostages. This is one of the rare ones. And Joyanne Reed, who we all know is trash, who don't really have the moral high ground over most people. This is just an example of the smartest among the professional managerial class realizing they can't go down with the ship. So once again, Joyanne Reed is not like a moral beacon. Like, she's not like anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, but she's smart enough. She's smart enough among the ruling class. Like, man, I can't go down this bad. I can't go down this hill.
You know what it is? She can't go back to her community, because what I found out in the segment I covered her yesterday, in the segment, she says her dad is from the Congo. So that's why she wouldn't be able to go back.
She's a legendary sellout, man.
Yeah, she's a legendary sellout. That's what I said too. I alluded to that in the same thing. Like, wow, when I found that, I was like, wow, that means your fucking selling out is worse. Your shit is worse. But yeah, she spoke about that in another segment. But let me let her finish her monologue. That's all we're gonna listen to. We're not gonna listen to the whole segment here.
Without any legal process. One of the released Palestinians was Mara Bakir, who was a child when Israeli forces shot and arrested her for allegedly attempting to stab an Israeli officer. Bakir and her family deny the accusations. As of September, the Israeli prison service was holding 146 Palestinian minors in detention or in prison, or what it defined as security grounds. At that time, Israel was also holding 34 Palestinian minors for being in Israel illegally. This is according to B'Tselem, a Jerusalem-based nonprofit that documents human rights violations.
Now, she understood that when I come with this story and I give these numbers, obviously all the pushback is going to be, well, who told you these numbers? Hamas. So she wanted to make it a point. No. This is from somebody that you guys are going to say you trust. That's why she's making it a point to say this part.
Violations in the Israeli-occupied Palestinian territories. And joining me now is Nora Erakat, human rights attorney and author of Justice for Some, Law and the Question of Palestine. Nora, thank you so much for being here. I want to start with the question of these releases on both sides. It's been 40 some odd days and 14,000 deaths. I've seen some of your interviews in which you've questioned whether this many deaths were needed to get these prisoners out. What do you make of the fact that this pause is happening now, so many deaths later?
Thanks, Joy. I've actually been really clear that I think that Israel has waged, now we're on day 52, campaign campaign that is not a military campaign, but what is very clearly an ethnic cleansing campaign.
What? in my best Scooby-Doo voice, this is on MSNBC where she's saying, hold on, Joyanne Reed. This is not a military campaign. This is clearly a ethnic cleansing campaign. This is the reason why they don't care that they're indiscriminately killing kids. If you're ethnically cleansing, kids are part of the cleansing process. If you are trying to replace the sort of indigenous population, you don't care if kids are also kids that killed. This is the reason why they don't care that they're killing civilians. If this was a military campaign, they would care that they're not actually hitting their targets. You get what I'm saying? I'm going in to get 100 military targets, but you're coming out with 500 civilian bodies. Wouldn't you go back and say, wow, let's reassess this military shit? We didn't even hit the targets we want. But if your whole thing is to just eliminate Palestinians, period, isn't that mission accomplished?
That's such a great point, CJ. Because all the people who say this is a war against Hamas, they are willing tools of Israeli propaganda. This is not a war against Hamas. You got to realize that Israel, their estimates, I'm using their numbers, they claim that they killed around 1,000 or so Hamas fighters. You know, there's around 30,000 Hamas fighters. So I'm trying to do the math on top of my head. That's less than 2-3% of Hamas fighters killed in exchange of what? Thousands of children dead? So you have to realize, just based on their stated number, which is a lie, by the way, Israel always inflates the numbers. So based on the numbers that they're providing, which I'm generously accepting, 1,000 Hamas fighters dead compared to 14,000 dead Palestinians, 6,000 dead children. That's a civilian death rate of around 95%. You guys understand? A civilian death rate of around 95%. So we in like Iraq war territory here. So why is the Iraq war bad? You guys acknowledge that Iraq war is bad, but you guys think Israel's actually going after Hamas? Here, I found it. This is a great tweet by Caitlin Johnstone that made this point. I'm glad I found it real quick. I want to share this because, well, your point was great because I'll just expand on it. Look at this. This is insane. We destroyed half of Gaza, displaced over 1.5 million people from their homes, murdered at least 6,000 children, and was only able to kill 1,000 to 2,000 Hamas militants? Fam, that's a horrible track record. And this record is so bad. I would assert that you cannot claim that Israel is aiming for Hamas with numbers this bad. CJ, if you was at a job and you had a 5% job performance rate, would anyone believe you're trying?
Right. Or
go ahead.
I was just about to say, or I had a cashier. I used to be one. I'm giving a till of $100 and I keep turning in $5 every night. Oh, oops, $95. I just lost it. Sorry, guys. Like, they're going to believe that wasn't intentional. But this is why the United States and Joe Biden in particular is losing credibility with youth more and more, is because this is not credible to say they're trying to avoid. It's not credible if your kill rate is in the 90 percentile. That is not credible.
Yeah. And that's such a great point you made earlier. I was just backing the point you made up, and this is what Caitlin said. And I'll pass you. I'm pretty much done with my segments today. But Caitlin said if Hamas was using human shields, killing civilians should also yield a huge Hamas fatality rate, since Hamas will be hiding among civilians. Yet the IDF has managed to kill massive numbers of civilians while barely touching Hamas. Maybe they're just lying about human shields. Once again, just basic logic that Israel supporters don't use. And I cannot emphasize enough that I do not believe that 1,000, 2,000 number for 1 fucking second, because this is based on what Israel's saying. And they always lie about the amount of Hamas people killed. They did it before when they struck the refugee camp. When they had a strike, they killed 50 civilians, and they said they killed one Hamas commander, but they couldn't confirm his death, and then later revealed that he was alive. So they do this all the time. So that's an asterisk to that as well, that number not even fucking real as far as I'm concerned. But CJ, pass to you for anything you want to add?
Yeah. Just one more receipt, and then we do have the Tulsi. That's quick because it's just a tweet. This is just a tweet to go over. It's not going to be long. But I do want to add this receipt now that we're talking about how the narrative is basically failed. I was going to do a segment, but it's good just to play this video right here instead of doing a full segment on it. It's about less than a minute and a half, so 90 seconds. But this is what it looks like to be losing the narrative and for your story not to be believable anymore. Like this is a BBC reporter anchor that's going to be challenging. Like, bro, I'm seeing the dead bodies, bro. This ain't adding up. What you're saying? Look at this contentious exchange.
14,000 civilians who have been killed.
No,
we completely appreciate many Israelis have lost their lives as well. Thousands of innocent civilians and children are dying in Gaza at the moment.
Lizzie, you have to let me speak on this point, okay? It's not a number game. If they hide behind the civilians and think that we will not get to them, they're wrong. Any civilian in Gaza that gives shelter to Hamas is in danger. We opened a corridor for them to leave the northern part of Gaza so that they don't get hurt. You know what they did? They went into our civilian cities and towns and raped and killed and slaughtered and beheaded people. It's not the same. You cannot compare. It's like the West fighting Nazi Germany. This is the equivalent, moral equivalent. You cannot put the numbers one next to the other. When the U.S. dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, okay, they wanted to end the war. We don't do that.
Okay, Mr. Barker.
We are considerate. We're considerate of the Palestinian people.
There are many people who would disagree with that statement, that you are considerate of Palestinian people. I have to say, I'm sorry, you've got lawyers around the world wanting to put Israel in front of the Hague for war crimes that have been committed in Gaza.
That was beautiful. Did you hear what she said? How beautiful that was? Go ahead, Nick. Play
the part again. Play it again.
Yeah, that was freaking awesome, and that's why I wanted to play it. She's saying these motherfuckers need to be put in front of a hog. There's lawyers that are saying that, and that's what she says at the end. Let's listen again.
I have to say, I'm sorry, you've got lawyers around.
I'm sorry, you're gonna
go ahead.
Around the world wanting to put Israel in front of the Hague for war crimes that have been committed in Gaza. As the UN says, it is a graveyard for children in Gaza at the moment. There are many who would dispute the fact that Israel has been considered.
Hamas leadership. Speak to Hamas leadership to put the white flag.
Mr. Barker, what do you...
Nobody believes this shit no more. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for one, it is bad that you lost the BBC. I explained this before on my hotspots. Like, if you lose the BBC and CNN, you're really fucked, because they are offended that they are working with amateur propagandists, and they can't. And the smartest among them realize they can't go down with the ship. But you guys realize what he is saying right there is a war crime. He is describing collective punishment. So she bring up how it's a child graveyard. He's like, well, blame Hamas. So the children deserve to die because of what Hamas did? That is quite literally, CJ, describing collective punishment.
That is. Absolutely.
And they are so dumb, they don't even realize that. They don't even realize that they go on camera, do a meltdown, and describe how they are actually doing war crimes.
Do you know how much of a psychopath you got to be to watch that and be like, man, he was based? You know how much of a fucking psychopath you got to be, Nick?